Welcome back to another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial, and in today's video we're going to set up a code lock for this door right here. They are all the same, but once we interact with this guy, it gives us this menu. We can type in the code. Mine is 85572. You can choose whatever code. You can even use text as well. Click enter, and there you go. So let's begin by updating some of the things that we already have. So let's begin with the door interface. Let's go inside of there and let's add a new function for our code. And I'm just going to call this code lock. For this one, we're going to need two inputs. So the first one is going to be, I'm going to call this door index, and this needs to be an integer. And this obviously is going to identify which door it is that we are trying to code unlock, better to say. And then we also need the code itself, which in my case is a string value. So that's all that we need in the door interface. Now the next thing that we need the actual sort of like a code lock, but it doesn't really matter what this exactly is. I'm just going to use a default actor, and I'm going to call this keypad. And you can add any meshes, you can add whatever you want to this. I will just simply add a cube just so that I can actually see this. And that's basically all. The static mesh doesn't really do any purpose in this whole thing. So you might probably want to add like a nice looking code lock or whatever. But what does matter is that we have a couple of variables here. So the first one is the door actor, that this key is, this padlock keypad is connected to. So that needs to be an actor type, so we can set this to be just a regular actor. It doesn't really matter which one we use, whether you specify a specific actor or just an actor. And the second thing that we need is the door index, because, well, right now you don't really see this, but once we implement drawers into this, we might have multiple doors or multiple drawers or both inside of the same actor, and they might have they will have different indexes depending on how many of them are in the same actor. So what I will do is make this into an integer, because door index is an integer, and what we got to make sure is that both of these variables are instance editable and exposed on spawn, so that we can provide these from the outside. And last thing that we need, I want to give this a tag so that my line trace can know how to interact with this, and I'm just going to call the tag keypad. And yeah, so the tag and two variables are the only important things in this whole thing. So now we can actually close this, and while we are still on the keypad topic, so let me see. So this is just the lock door. This is the one that I have the key for, and this is just a regular door which can be opened. So what I will do is bring in the keypad. I will have it next to the door so that I know for which one it is, but the position doesn't matter. What does matter is that you select this actor, and then in the defaults, now since we expose this on spawn, we can select a door actor. So I'm going to click on this thing right here, and I can click now on, I can pick door 2, and instantly it sets this to be the actor. Then we also need to provide the door index, but by default we only have one door, so we only add once. Later when we add the drawers, you're going to notice the difference on how the indexes change, but right now we are only using the index 0, so make sure for now to leave the door index at 0. So now that is good, and the next thing that we need is a widget, which is actually going to display the keypad so that we can input the code. So I'm going to add a new widget blueprint, and I'm going to call this UI keypad. Let's open this up. And inside of here we don't need much. What we do need is some kind of a UI, but for now let's just set up some of the functionality. So we need a new variable. I'm just going to call this actor, and I'm going to make this into a regular actor type, instance editable and exposed on spawn. And let's leave this be for now. We're going to come back to that in a second. First, let's go to our character and set up so that we can actually interact with this. So right now what do we have is on keyboard E key, line trace by channel, check if we have hit something, and then whether the left shift button is down. Before we do this, I actually want to do something more. So from the hit actor, I want to check if the actor has a tag. And then the tag, in my case, is going to be that keypad that I typed in the keypad actor. So then I want to do an if branch check, connect the execution to true, like this. And then on false, if it doesn't have the keypad tag, then we can proceed with opening, locking, or whatever doing with the doors. But if it's true, then in that case, what we want to do is create a widget, and this widget then needs to be our UI keypad. Now this requires us to have an actor, and we can use the hit actor for that. Then we can just simply add to the viewport. And then to show the mouse and stuff, then we are going to, from the widget itself, we're going to get the owning player. So the owning player, and then from the owning player, this returns us a controller, so we can just show mouse cursor. So set show mouse cursor to be true. And then I also want to, from the controller, we want to set the input, set input mode, game, and UI. And then we want to plug in the in-widget to focus to be the return value from the create widget, so that we would focus on that specific widget. So that's all we need in the character. Now let's go back to our UI keypad, and what I will simply do is add some styling and do some, I will do like a keypad, and I'll be back once I'm done with the visuals. So right now I have a very basic setup. So what I did was I have a vertical box which then contains the text, which is going to be our code that we have input. We can actually just find this to the middle if you want, or do whatever styling. Then I have a bunch of horizontal boxes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and these basically represent, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, clear, and this is the 0, and this is the enter button. So you can see the names I have put in here. Obviously, you'll probably want to do some more styling. I don't want to really get into that, but what I will do is add a binding to this text field. So for the content, select the text, add, create a new binding, and so this requires us to have some output. So for this one, I will add a new variable, and I'm going to call this code. Let's call this current code. Let's call this current code, make this into a string, and then we can use this to display in that text. So that's going to be our code that we're going to put in. So now let's go to the graph, to the event graph, I mean, and so we can just simply delete all of this. And now this is going to be a bit messy, because what we essentially want to do is have an on-click event for every single one of our numbers. So I'm going to add those, and I'll be back in a sec. So now to make this a little bit more easier, I have all my on-click events, and I will add another variable, and I'm going to call this add number, and this is also going to be a string. And now this is the variable that we are going to set every time when we click one of the numbers. So make sure you set this for every single one of these. So the first one is going to be 0, then we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and etc. So there we go. I have my add numbers 0 till 9, all good. Then the next thing that we want to do is we want to set our actual current code. So let's set that. And what I will do is actually connect all of these to the set current code, because we are going to add that value to the current code that we have. So it should look something like this. And then let me just actually reroute this. Maybe it's gonna make it look better, maybe not. So it's gonna look like this. Then what we want to do next is from the current code, we want to append, because we want to combine two strings together. We want to combine A is our current code, so basically the code that we have already put in, and we also want to add this new number. So let's add a add number in the B route. So this is going to add the code, and it should be all good. Then let's work on our clear. So we have a clear button, and on click, this is going to be super simple. All we want to do is set our current code, and yeah, just leave it empty, because it's going to clear out the code that we have put in. Then the next thing that we want to do is obviously our enter button. So let's have an on-click event for that one as well. And this is going to be the one which is actually going to try to open the doors for us once we have put in the code. So what we want to do here is cast to our keypad, because we want to communicate with our keypad first. We want to use the actor, like so. And this actor right here is the actor that we provide once we spawn the actor, so our hit actor, so basically the keypad itself. Then from the cast node, what we want to do is we want to get the door actor, and we also want to get the door index as well. And one more thing that we will need is our actual current code, so let's get that one as well. And then from this one, we can run our code lock message. So for the target, we want to use the door actor. For the door index, we want to use door index, and for the code, we want to use the current code. So it should look at the end something like this. Then once we have done that, we want to remove the mouse, remove the focus. So we want to get the owning player pawn. Actually, not the pawn. We want to just get the owning player itself, not the pawn, just the player, because we need the controller. So from the controller, we can set the mouse show mouse cursor to back to false. So set show mouse cursor is false. Then we want to set the input type, input mode, game only, so that we would focus back on the game and not on the widget anymore. And the last thing is we want to remove from parent, basically, so we would remove this keypad widget. So we are all good in here. Now the last thing where we need to go to is our door master. We got to do some adjustments over here. So since we added a new event to our interface, we have a new event called lock door. So let's run that. We need the lock door event. There we go, lock door event. Actually, not the lock door, we need the code lock event instead. Sorry for that. So we have the code lock, and then from there we can just simply open door. You might be wondering, wait, where is the check for the key? Well, it's gonna be in the open door. So let's go to that one, and here we're gonna set up a little bit of a different Boolean setup that we have right now. So this is gonna be actually quite a lot different. So let's start. So the first thing that I actually want to do is, let me move this up and some small rerouting. There we go. So we have that out of the way, and now what I actually want to do is reconnect this false to the true. This will be probably a bit confusing to you, but the reason behind this is I no longer want to use my is locked straight value. Instead, what I want to do is I want to use a not value. So basically, this is going to return me the complete opposite of what's inside of this. So if it's true, it's going to return false. If it's false, it's going to return true. And so I want to make sure that this is true. And I need another condition. So this is going to be our end condition. So if both of the values, so this one and the bottom one, is true, so basically if the door is unlocked, if it's not locked, it's going to return true, and that's exactly what we want. If the door is not locked, we can move in. And the other condition that I want to use is I want to check if the door code is equal to nothing. So basically if the door doesn't even have a code, and actually not and but or, so two options, whether the code is empty or we have the code. And to provide the code in the open door, let's add a new parameter and let's call this code. Make this into a string, and then we can check whether the code from the structure is equal to the code that we have provided. And then we can plug that into the OR. So then we can connect this to the AND, and let me try to explain this a little bit. So basically, we need to make sure that both of these are true, because this is the AND. So basically, as you can read, this returns the logical AND of two booleans. So both of these should be true in order for this value to be true. So if the locked is false, so if it's not locked, then it's going to return as true. If it's locked, it's going to return as false. So if it is locked, we can't open it even if we have the code. And then at the bottom from the code, we want to make sure that whether the code is empty or we have the code. And so basically both of those then will come out as true if everything matches up, if we have the key or whatever, and then, well, we can work next. So the last thing left for us to do is provide this code, and we can do that here at the top on the event code lock, pass along the code, and we all good. Now the last thing is to actually give this thing a code. So select your door, the one that you selected for the door actor in the keypad. So let's select that door. So this doesn't have to be locked, this can be unlocked, because, well, we need the code. So let's say code will be like 85572. Let's press play and let's see what happens. So if we walk up to the door, try to interact with it, we can't because it has a code and we haven't provided any code. So let's interact with this, and this brings me up this menu, so I can type 85572. There we go. So you can see this better now, 85572, enter, boom, the doors are open. We can't interact with them, we can't open them once more or whatever, they're going to close on their own after a few seconds, like we set up for the delay. We can't open them. We can only open them if we type in the code that we have. Obviously, you can also type in whatever code you want, and then when you set clear, it clears it out, and then you can just simply retype the code once more, and the doors are open. And all the other doors still work the same way. We gotta unlock these to go inside of these, and yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. Hope you learned something new, hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.